Welcome to Brainish English Stories.
Bah, said Carl Massaligny. The question of agreeable husbands is a hard one. I have seen many kinds, and yet I cannot say for sure what I think of them. I have often tried to decide if they are blind, weak, or able to see everything. I believe there are some husbands in each of these groups. Let's talk quickly about the blind ones. We cannot really call them agreeable because they do not know what is going on. They are nice people who cannot see past the end of their noses. It is strange and interesting to see how easy it is to trick men and women. We are fooled by the smallest tricks from the people around us, like our children, our friends, our helpers, and the people we buy things from. People trust too easily. And when we want to find lies in others, we do not use even a small part of the cleverness we use when we want to lie to someone else. Husbands who see everything can be put into three types. First, there are those who have a reason, like money or other goals, to let their wives have love affairs. These men only want to keep up appearances, and they are happy with that. Next, there are the husbands who get angry. You could write a great book about them. Then we have the weak ones. These men are afraid of gossip. There are also those who are powerless or maybe just too tired. They run away from the duties of marriage because they are afraid of sickness or health problems. They feel fine letting a friend take these risks. But once, I met a husband who was very different from all others. He had a funny, clever way to protect himself from the usual problems. In Paris, I got to know an elegant couple who were very fashionable. The woman was nervous, tall, thin, and had many admirers. People thought she had many love affairs. She liked my jokes, and I think she liked me too. I flirted with her, and she responded with obvious signals. Soon we were exchanging sweet looks, holding hands, and all the little things that come before the final step. Still, I waited. I think that most affairs in society, even if they are short, are not worth the problems they bring us. So I thought about the good and bad things I could expect. I thought I saw that her husband was suspicious of me. One evening at a party, I was saying sweet things to the young woman in a small room next to the big hall where people were dancing. In a mirror, I saw someone watching me. It was her husband. Our eyes met. Then he turned his head and walked away. I whispered, "Your husband is spying on us." She looked surprised and asked, "My husband?" "Yes, he has been watching us for a while." "No way. Are you sure?" "Very sure." "How strange. He is usually very friendly to all my friends." "Maybe he has guessed that I love you." "No way. You are not the first person to pay attention to me. Every woman who is a little noticed has a group of admirers following her." "Yes, but I love you deeply. Even if that's true, does a husband ever know these things?" "So he is not jealous?" "No, not at all." She thought for a moment and then continued, "No, I don't think I've ever seen him be jealous." "Has he never watched you?" "No. As I said, he is always friendly to my friends." From that day, I began to flirt with her much more often. The woman didn't interest me more than before, but the possible jealousy of her husband made me very curious. As for her, I looked at her in a calm and clear way. She had a certain kind of charm that came from a quick, happy, friendly, and light-hearted mind, but nothing really deep. She was, as I said before, an excitable little person, all on the surface with a flashy elegance. How can I explain it? She was like a decoration, not a home. One day, after we had dinner together, her husband said to me just as I was leaving, "My dear friend," he now called me friend, "we are going to the countryside soon. My wife and I are very happy to have people we like visit us. We would be very happy if you could spend a month with us. It would be very kind of you to do so." I was very surprised, but I accepted. A month later, I arrived at their house, called Vertcrescent, in the countryside of Turenne. They were waiting for me at the station, 5 miles from the house. There were 3 of them, her, the husband, and a man I didn't know. His name was the Comte de Morterade. They introduced him to me. He seemed very happy to meet me, and strange ideas came to my mind as we went along the beautiful road between 2 lines of bushes. I thought to myself, what does this mean? Here is a husband who must know that his wife and I are more than just friends, and yet he invites me to his house, treats me like an old friend, and seems to say, "Go ahead, my friend, everything is fine." Then I was introduced to a very pleasant man who seemed to have already made himself at home. And maybe he was even trying to leave, and he seemed just as happy at my arrival as the husband was. Is he maybe an old admirer who wants to move on? You could think that. But then, would these 2 men secretly have made one of those strange agreements that are so common in society? And do they expect me to join in this plan and go along with it? All hands and arms are open to me. All doors and hearts are open to me. And what about her? She was a mystery. She couldn't be unaware of everything. But, well, I couldn't understand it. Dinner was very happy and friendly. After we left the table, the husband and his friend started playing cards, while I went out to the porch with Madame to look at the moonlight. She seemed very moved by nature, and I thought the time for my happiness was close. That evening, she was very charming. The countryside seemed to make her softer. Her long, slim waist looked pretty on the stone porch next to a big vase with some flowers. I felt like pulling her under the trees, falling to my knees, and speaking words of love to her. Her husband's voice called, "Louise." "Yes, dear. You are forgetting the tea." "I'll go take care of it, my friend." We went back into the house, and she gave us some tea. When the 2 men finished playing cards, they were clearly tired. I had to go to my room. I didn't fall asleep until late, and I slept poorly. We planned a trip for the next afternoon, and we went in an open carriage to visit some ruins. She and I were in the back of the carriage, and they sat across from us, facing backward. The conversation was warm and pleasant. I am an orphan, and I felt as if I had found a family. I felt so at home with them. Suddenly, as she stretched her foot out between her husband's legs, he said in a soft voice, "Louise, Don't wear out your old shoes yourself. There's no reason to dress neater in Paris than here in the country. I looked down. She was indeed wearing old shoes, and I saw her stockings were not pulled up tight. She blushed and hid her foot under her dress. The friend looked out into the distance with a calm and uninterested look. The husband offered me a cigar, which I accepted. For a few days I couldn't be alone with her for even 2 minutes. He was with us everywhere. He was, however, very kind to me. One morning, he came to get me for a walk before breakfast, and we started talking about marriage. I said a little about loneliness and how wonderful life can be with a woman's love. Suddenly he stopped me, saying, "My friend, don't talk about things you don't know. A woman who has no reason to love you will not love you for long. All the little charms that make them so lovely when they are not ours disappear as soon as they belong to us. And then the good women, that is, our wives, are not, well, they do not understand their role as wives. Do you understand?" He said nothing more, and I couldn't understand what he was thinking. 2 days after that conversation, he called me to his room very early to show me a collection of pictures. I sat in an easy chair across from the big door that separated his room from his wife's room, and behind this door, I heard someone moving around. I was barely looking at the pictures, though I kept saying, "Oh, wonderful, delightful, beautiful." Then he suddenly said, "Oh, I have a beautiful piece in the next room. I'll go get it." He ran to the door quickly, and both sides opened as if for a show. In a large, messy room, with skirts, collars, and shirts lying around on the floor, stood a tall, thin woman. The lower part of her body was covered with an old, worn-out silk skirt that hung loosely on her body, and she was standing in front of a mirror, brushing her short, thin blonde hair. Her arms were bent, making sharp angles, and as she turned around in surprise, I saw under a simple cotton top a bony chest, covered with well-placed padding. The husband gave a quick shout and came back, closing the doors, saying, "Oh, how stupid I am. So thoughtless. My wife will never forgive me for that." I almost felt like thanking him. I left 3 days later, after warmly shaking hands with the 2 men and kissing the lady's fingers. She said a cold goodbye to me. Carl Massaligny stopped talking. Someone asked, "But who was the friend?" "I don't know. But he seemed very sad to see me leave so soon,